All right, Coach, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's show with the Tony Pruitt Show. And today we have a special guest, a Longhorn and Lady basketball legend for sure. In 1984 and 1986, she was the Russell Athletic WBCA National Coach of the Year. In 1986, she was into the Texas Women's Hall of Fame. In 1998, she was in Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. In 1999, she was inducted into inaugural class of Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. In 1995, she was the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame. In 1995, she was the International Scholar Athletic Hall of Fame. In 1997, she was elected into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. In 1987, the winner of the Carol Ekman Award, Outstanding Commitment in Women's Athletics. In 2000, she was elected into the UT Women's Athletic Hall of Fame. In 2003, she was the Harvey Pinnock Award of Excellence in the Game of Life. In 2004, she won the Casey Award. She was the Conference Coach of the Year 8 times, National Coach of the Year 6 times. And in 2010, she was into the Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Association of Collegiate Women's Athletic Administration. Whew, that is a long list of accolades.
All ancient history. You know, in sports, it's what have you done lately or living in the moment. And it's been quite a few moments since I've been involved.
What a career you've had. It's unbelievable.
Thank you. I could never have envisioned my opportunity that I had through sport and basketball in particular. I grew up about 90 miles from Waco, and right. Small town, 22 people in my graduating class. And I always say that I never had the thought that I would end up being a coach, because in small towns like Gothway, they hire 2 or 3 football coaches, and I think they draw straws, and the short straw coaches girls basketball. So all of my coaches had been men, which gave me a very limited view in terms of my ability to choose that as a profession.
Right, absolutely. Well, first, we want to start off by saying happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your special day to be with us.
Well, it's always a privilege.
My first question is kind of an unusual question, but where do you have all of these awards hanging? Are they in your office or in your house?
I have a few at home, and I don't have an office at the university at this point in time. A lot of them have been passed on to an archivist at the University of Texas, and I was really obviously pleased to have every and each award. But after a while, it's really comforting to think that somebody else is going to take care of all those awards and the programs and the newspaper clippings and put it in a way that people might see it well into the future.
Is it standing by your statue by any chance?
No, that statue, which was truly an honor.
How cool is that?
It was very cool. We just moved, as you may or may not be aware, the Irwin Center, built in 1977, or that was the first year that we played basketball there, has now seen its last basketball game played this past spring. So the statue was there with other memorabilia, and all of that now has been moved in anticipation of the Irwin Center plot becoming a part of the med school. So if you ever get to campus, you would be, I think, really impressed with what has happened in the north end zone. It now houses all of the awards and accolades of all the student athletes who participated at the University of Texas. And as you can imagine, it's really filled with really fun facts, and it brings back so many memories for the men's side, all well into 100 years, and the women not quite that long. And
I would love to see that. That is so cool to have a statue. I'm sorry, but that's just cool.
Yes. I said the good news is it's indoors, so the pigeons can't get on it. And the other good news is I'm not dead yet. So it was a real honor.
Absolutely. So talking about your career, what are you most proud of?
Well, obviously, coaching careers are usually measured by the general public and to a degree by all of us based on wins and losses. But when you move away from that arena and the farther I get down the line from the last time I coached, it doesn't have anything to do with wins and losses. It has to do with relationships. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that today. I've heard from so many people and so many former athletes who have reached out and extended good wishes. And that means so much to me. And I'm sure it does to all coaches when they are in contact with athletes that they have known during their career.
I can agree. Okay, I'm going to take you back in your early career. I'm a Midway grad, and I understand that you taught at Midway, and you coached there. I believe that's where you started. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think he's long gone at this point, but if you have any knowledge of the history of Midway and that school district, you recognize the name M.T. Rice.
That's my question.
Right. I was playing, actually, when I went to Baylor, I thought my basketball career was over, but I happened to wander into Rena Mars McLean Gym just because I missed being active. And I saw these women playing basketball. And I inquired, what is this? Because obviously there were no scholarships. There wasn't really an organized team. But I found that most of those people were physical education majors, and they actually did travel around on weekends and play in some other at other institutions and tournaments. And one of the way that they prepared for that was that they scrimmaged against local high schools. And Midway was the power, as you probably are well aware. And we scrimmaged Midway several times. And in that situation, I obviously met Mr. Rice because he was not only the superintendent of schools, but he was coaching girls basketball. And so that relationship started there. And once I graduated from Baylor, I graduated midterm. So I took a job in Houston because there weren't a lot of jobs available at midterm at teaching physical education. But shortly thereafter, Mr. Rice came to Houston, met with me, and asked me if I would consider coming back to Midway as an assistant coach. And this really dates me when I tell you this, Tony, but I had learned to shoot a jump shot, which wasn't necessarily a common thing among girls playing basketball at that point in time. But I learned out of necessity because I played with boys and they shot jump shots and we played horse. And if I wanted to stay in the game, I had to learn to shoot a jump shot. So Mr. Rice said, I want to teach the players at Midway and in the program, starting all the way from junior high, I want to teach them to shoot jump shots. And he indicated he thought I could do that. So that was my first introduction into coaching. And I had a wonderful opportunity to learn so much from him and his experience and what a wonderful person and what a great coach he was. And I always want to give credit to Mr. Rice and the Midway School District and my very first opportunity to experience being a coach.
I was going to ask you about MT Rice, so you got a very good memory. Where do you remember where you were when you found out that UT was going to hire you?
There was another little twist to the story. As I coached at Midway, I think 4 years, Mr. Rice was now ready to retire. And we had a conversation. He asked me if I would take that position and become the head coach. I thought at that point, this is a no-win situation. I think at that point, they had won District 36 straight times. And I was apprehensive about doing that. But during that same time frame, I was approached about, and I had been working on my master's at night while I was actually teaching and coaching at Midway. And around that same time, the administration of the physical education department asked me if I would come back, finish my master's, and help coach this team that I had once been a part of. So I chose that as a route as opposed to following Mr. Rice as the head coach. He moved on to hire Mitch Lemoyne, who had a very successful career there. But my then way that I progressed was spending a year at Baylor, finishing my master's, and then I was approached to come to Sam Houston State University, hired to be a physical education instructor, but I would also coach 3 sports, and my teaching would involve 7 activity classes, coach 3 sports, and I thought that was the best job in the world.
Wow. That's impressive. Do you feel you've helped pave the way for other women in general in getting hired as head coaches nowadays? Because it was unheard of back in the day.
It was. I only knew probably two women who were coaching at the high school level. One was a woman that became the all-time winningest coach in the country, Lita Andrews. I knew that she was coaching early in her career. And Jan Lahudney, who coached at Victoria High School and was very successful there. Those were really the only 2 women I saw coaching at the high school level. Women that were coaching on college campuses like I was at Sam Houston, they were all hired to be instructors, and because they loved the sport, because they were passionate about it, they volunteered to coach whatever teams might have been in existence at that point in time. So yes, it became more common, but how would we ever have gotten to where we are today if it had not been for the passage of Title IX? Midway and Gothway and so many small towns in the state of Texas had always provided opportunities for girls to play sports, but that wasn't happening in the metropolitan areas. In those first years, when I actually took the job at Texas, all of my recruiting was in small towns, a lot of them in the West Texas area, because Dallas and Houston, San Antonio, none of those cities were offering much opportunity for women to participate in sport. If they had any sports, it was probably tennis or maybe volleyball, but it was not widely accepted that women would excel or want to participate in sport past that early childhood experience. So Title IX becomes a federal law in the early 70s, and that changed the landscape for everyone. Not only did it, and we usually think about it as being specifically for sports, and that's not the case. And by the way, we're celebrating the 50th year of the passage of Title IX this year.
That's true.
June. And when that law was passed, if you looked at the makeup of law schools across the country and med schools across the country, there were less than 10% women in any of those environments. And now if you looked at the numbers, it's probably a little more weighted toward women and more than 50%. So Title IX changed opportunities for women in a big time way. And that then set the tone for a lot of changes, some of them which institutions readily and happily made, and others where they went kicking and screaming into a world of change, which included women's athletics.
Wow, that's great. Well, how does it feel to have 900 victories? That's unbelievable.
You know, I think every coach would agree when I say that you remember the losses more than you remember the wins. Obviously, there were some really special wins, but the coaching world is such a roller coaster. And there is nothing as devastating professionally as having a loss. And the more important the game, the more significant the game, those losses become so difficult to move past. I think we had a tremendous opportunity at the University of Texas, and we won a lot of games over which were then and later conference opponents. And I look back on that and I think about it wasn't so much a celebration when you won games that you were supposed to win. It was more a sigh of relief. And I think the players in some ways felt that very same way. So expectations always raise the ante, raise the pressure. And the more expectations that we place on ourselves are that the public places on teams, then it becomes more and more pressure to be successful. And that's why I think the losses linger a little bit more than the wins.
Gotcha. Well, all of a sudden you go to UT, you're coaching in the Taj Mahal, as I like to say, or the Frank Irvin Center. I call it the Drum.
We do too.
And then all of a sudden you're drawing 7,000 to 8,000 people for your ball games. That was unheard of back then. Do you agree?
It was a very special time. And I might tell you that even though you considered, and most people did, the Irwin Center, the most unique and special environment which athletic teams could play, they did not plan for a women's basketball team to be a part of that facility. In fact, I still, as we closed that facility in the spring in that last game, I said it took us 10 or 15 years to get urinals out of the locker room that was designated for the women, because they did not make plans for women's sports to exist at that point in time. And in some ways, they actually rewrote history, and I tried to straighten everyone back. If you look at the record, they'll probably say that the first game played in the fall of 1977 was a men's game against, I don't remember who. That's not true. The first basketball game played in the Irwin Center in 1977 was a women's game in which we played against, of all opponents, Temple Junior College. And you might think, well, that was a real opportunity to rack up a big score. That wasn't the case. Temple Junior College had been giving women scholarships much longer than the University of Texas. And the best programs at that point in time were not only the junior colleges, but Wayland Baptist College, which was a dominant program. So things were considerably different. But we know the women played there first in 1977. And then to make it even more dramatic, at the last game, the men gave out posters and advertised their last game in the Irwin Center, the last game in the Irwin Center, which also wasn't true. The women played a game after that and then played 2 games in the NCAA tournament in the Irwin Center. So we have to really fight for our place in history, and we have to fight for the opportunities that women have access to. And that's never going to change. We need to move forward. We need to push those same opportunities. And it's up to the current generation to realize that it hasn't always been as easy as it is for them now, and that they may need to make sure that it is moved forward for the young people that come after them.
Well, I'm a huge women's basketball fan. I hadn't always been. I'm in Waco, so we kind of all jumped on the bandwagon of Kim Mulkey.
Right.
But I love it now. Are you happy with where ladies basketball is today?
I think it is tremendous. And, we were serious competitors with Kim and Baylor and always have been. But it was so great that she built the program she did in Waco, because we all have to do, I always say, we're still doing missionary work in support of women's athletics. All of us have a responsibility to grow the sport, and nothing helps more than winning and bringing crowds to the arenas and making sure that they appreciate the talent and the dedication that women have for the sport that they love. So the more people we can get watching games, and I think all of us took the attitude that if people who are uneducated and unaware of women's sports, if they come one time and we provide a product that is fun and exciting and exhibits teamwork, which people appreciate at every level, then we have an opportunity for those people to become lifelong fans. And it's important. It's important for us to provide opportunities for young people to showcase their talent. But that is so amplified when there are hundreds or thousands of people who are in the gym, who are appreciating and supporting their efforts. You can imagine how exhilarating that is for an athlete to go into a gym that's packed with people and feel that support and that energy.
I love it. I think it's great. Tell me about your relationship with the late, great Pat Summitt.
Well, Pat was a real competitor as well, and we go way back. I think at one time, the team that we had played the most and the longest running continual opponent was probably Tennessee. Tennessee and Texas, we were both very good at that point in time, and there was some leapfrogging going for positions. And I don't know anyone in my past who was more competitive than Pat, but I also don't know anyone who was a better person. And away from the court, we had a very close and cordial friendship, and I miss her on a daily basis, and I miss her influence over the women's game.
Y'all were legends. It was a fun run.
It was for sure.
Are you still employed with the University of Texas, or what is your role there?
You know, I do still show up at the University of Texas periodically. I work part-time, and it's certainly by choice that I want to stay involved. There's nothing more exhilarating than being around talented and passionate young people. And that makes me feel energized. It makes me feel supportive. And I do whatever needs to be done. I really enjoy the opportunity to stay active and to stay around the young people. I don't know that I have official duties other than to say my title is special assistant to the athletic director. So when he calls with a variety of tasks, I would very willingly do that. But for the most part, it's the best of all worlds to be involved as I am, but at the same time to be able to sort of set my own schedule.
Absolutely. That's a great role. You've earned it.
Well, thank you.
The drum was kind of like your second home, I would imagine. And you've seen a lot of venues there through the years. What's one of your favorite venues you remember? I mean, they've had a lot of concerts. Does anything stand out? What's your favorite one?
Well, you know, yes, the Irwin Center became home. There were a couple of times I had hard decisions to make, and the Irwin Center figured very prominently in that. At one time, our athletic director, Donna Lopiano, who is the architect of what women's athletics was ultimately become on the campus, she resigned, took another job. And she and the administration asked me to become women's athletic director because at that point in time, we had separate departments for some reasons. It's a long story. But given the opportunity to step aside from coaching, I thought about it long and hard. And the thought, this seems simplistic, but it really was important to me. As I thought about never going into the Irwin Center on a daily basis and never being in a practice situation with those young people and never having an opportunity to see them develop and become teams as opposed to individuals, I just couldn't deal with that. No. So I went back to the administration and said, I really appreciate the confidence and the opportunity you've given me, that I cannot give up coaching. So ultimately they said, okay, do both of them. And for 9 years, I was the women's athletic director and the basketball coach. In retrospect, that might have been a mistake, because coaching is a 24/7 full-time job, and to be diverted to other issues was not easy. And maybe if I had it to do again, I'd say, no, I'm not going to do the dual role. But I felt pressure to maintain what had been established on the University of Texas campus in regard to women's athletics. And I did not want us to lose the prestige, the credibility, and the opportunities that we'd had. So in an attempt to keep that, I agreed to do both. But coaching was then and now always what made me feel like I didn't have a job, but did what I wanted to do.
Good deal. Do you still wear your national championship ring?
You know what? That's an interesting story. Before there was Kim Mulkey, there was Sonja Hogue at the university. At Baylor University. You may remember that name. She coached before Kim. In fact, she was Kim's coach at Louisiana Tech, and she came to Baylor, coached in 3 or 4 years. I don't remember the time frame. And after she stopped coaching and Kim became the coach, Sonja actually asked me for the national championship ring to be displayed at the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame shortly after I was inducted there. I never saw that ring again. So I always need to call Sonja and say, remember that ring? You think you could get it back? So no, it's not the kind of thing that I probably would have worn. And I think that illustrates it's not the material things that mean things to you as much as the memories and the relationships and the opportunities. So no, that ring, I don't know where it is, but obviously
that's crazy.
It's not my possession.
Are you pleased with where UT basketball is today?
The sport itself, yes. I think, and people ask me, the players are so much better today. No, they're not. Some of those players that played at Midway High School in those early years were just as talented as the players that play today. They just didn't have an opportunity to showcase it. And even at the collegiate level, those early teams here and across the country were super talented. There are many more talented players today because of the opportunities that they've had. So the numbers are bigger. The skill is basically impressive. And I don't believe that today's athlete is any better than those early athletes. They've just had more opportunities.
True. Well, now
if you're asking, I'm sorry. I didn't want to.
No, go ahead.
I just want to add my own opinion about the environment in which athletics, particularly at the collegiate level, operates today. I think we're going down a road that is bumpy. I think we're going down a road that we need to backtrack some from. And right now it's day to day. Where are we going? What is the goal? Let's not lose sight of the goal, which was educational sport opportunity. And when we lose the word education attached to sport at the collegiate level, then we have crossed a boundary that I think we'll all regret in the future.
Because you had like a 99% graduation rate, is that correct?
The players that I recruited were very motivated to do well academically. There were some obvious advantages to their motivation at that point in time. There were no pro leagues. They knew that they were going to need a degree and that education to move forward and be professionals and to have success after athletics. So that was a big motivator for them. And yes, I'm very proud of the fact that they had an opportunity to get a degree from the University of Texas.
Absolutely. Well, at the end of every show, I ask, it's called the Fun Fast 5 questions. It's only fun. I just give you 5 questions. You're going to get 6 today because it's your birthday. So,
yeah, great. Thanks.
So I'm just going to ask you real quick. What is your favorite pastime hobby?
I'm a golfer now. Well, I have to clarify that. I'm not really a golfer. I play golf and I enjoy that because it's such a social sport.
Oh, yeah. You get it in the outdoors. Good deal. Do you prefer waffles or pancakes?
I can't turn it down at a good waffle at any point, regardless of what you put on top of it.
Waffles. Okay. What kind of music do you prefer?
I'm pretty versatile with music. I like The Eyes of Texas is my favorite song.
That's a good one. Do you remember your first pet and its name?
I do. It was a Cocker Spaniel, and she was red. And when she was in the sun, her coat almost sparkled. And so that was her name, Sparkle.
I'll be darned. You remember that. What is your favorite vacation spot?
Somewhere where there's really beautiful golf course.
Golf courses. And your bonus question, do you prefer Elvis or the Beatles?
Oh, Elvis by far.
I'd have to agree. I agree. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. You're a class act. Never change the way you are. And thank you for the memories.
Well, thanks very much. And thanks for letting me see your family and for what you've done. And as a women's basketball fan, I know you're adding to the number of people that push for its growth and its visibility.
I love it. And we hope you have an awesome birthday.
Thank you so very much. It's just another excuse to eat cake, right?
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you all for watching. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. God bless.